Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. I'm Belsi, and today we are going to discuss how remote work is responsive organization and employer experiences.
Hi, I'm Hannah. Instead of just describing remote work, we want to understand its deeper implications for leadership, culture, and performance.
Hi everyone, I'm Diazeli. I will focus mainly on the psychological and social impact on employees.
And I'm Ilani. I contribute from the strategic and HR perspective.
So we organized the conversation around 10K question. Let's start.
I'll read the first question. How does the lack of physical interaction influence the construction of organizational culture, and what strategies could be implemented to mitigate this absence?
I think culture is probably one of the first things that weakens remotely because people stop sharing daily experience. They only meet for talks, not for relationships.
Right, and we have those informal moments. Employees don't really observe how the organization behaves, they only receive instructions.
Exactly. So culture stops being learned naturally and has to be designed. And that's why many companies now create virtual resources or regular teams check-ins to replace spontaneous interactions.
Instead of culture happening organically, it becomes intentional management.
And that actually connects to the next question. How can leaders ensure equity in career development opportunities for remote employees compared to those working in a face to face environment?
The problem is visibility. Managers, on conclusion, trust the employees they physically see more often.
Which means remote workers may perform equally but still receive fewer opportunities.
So companies need structured evaluations, measurable goals, documented feedback, and transparent promotion criteria. Otherwise, equality depends on presence instead of performance. So let's continue with the next question. What is the long-term psychological impact of virtual work isolation on employers, and how can organizations prevent and address these effects?
Over time, people can feel disconnected not only from college but from the organized themselves.
And interestingly, flexibility sometimes increases access pursued because employees feel they must always be able.
So prevention isn't only social activities, it's also boundaries, like clear schedules and respecting offline time.
Exactly. Well-being becomes part of organizational design and not a personal responsibility.
Following that idea, how is the concept of work present redefined in a virtual environment, and what challenges do performance managers face in this context?
Presence used to mean being physically there. Now it means delivering results.
But some managers still monitor activity, like only status we create distracts.
So organization must move to outcome-based evaluation. Otherwise, remote work feels like surveillance instead of autonomy.
And that changes layer speed from supervision to coordination.
Now let's move forward. To what extent can the flexibility of remote work become a burden for employees, and how can organizations balance work demands with the need for clear boundaries between personal and professional life?
Flexibility becomes a burden when limits disappear.
Yes, commuting time disperses but working time span.
Okay, so organization needs policies, not just recommendations or something like that. And obviously that protects personal time.
What are the implications of remote work for information security and privacy? And how can companies strengthen their cybersecurity protocols in this new environment?
Remote work multiplies access points, so rates increase automatically.
And many breaches happen because of human behavior, not technology.
Exactly, and that's why cybersecurity now includes employee training and not only software protection. Okay, let's continue with the next question. How can companies foster creativity and innovation in teams working entirely virtually?
Autonomy helps creativity because employers control their environment.
But innovation is collective, so collaboration has to be scheduled instead of spontaneous. So, virtual brainstorming replaces hallway conversations.
This leads to another aspect. How does the visualization of the work environment affect power dynamic and decision making within organization?
Digital communication can flatten hierarchies since more people can participate.
But it can also increase control if leaders monitor everything.
So technology doesn't decide power. Leadership status. Let me read the night question. What challenges do companies face in measuring productivity and performance in a virtual work environment, and what methods might be most effective in assessing the performance of remote employees?
The biggest challenge is the absence of visual supervision.
Which push organization to define clear objective instead of the observing effort.
And continuous feedback becomes more important than annual evaluations.
And that brings us to the final question.
How can organizations maintain a sense of belonging and cohesion among employees in an environment where face-to-face interaction are limited or non-existent?
Belonging now depends on communication frequency and recognition.
Also, share goals. People feel connected when they understand why they work, not just what they do.
So cohesion in remote work don't appear natural, it must be international creative.
In conclusion, remote work is not simply working from home. It transforms organizational structure.
It changes relationships, motivation, and well-being.
And it forces companies to rethink leadership and culture.
Bye. Thank you for listening to our podcast.